worked with Roger on the Department of Energy in its initial launch. And so Roger López is a director of engineering at Phase 2. He was the principal architect for the Department of Energy, and I can't say enough about him. Pretty amazing. He has a very long-standing background in the enterprise Drupal space. Prior to even coming to Phase 2, he was at Sony Music and was a part of their enterprise system. And that is my introduction to Roger.
All right, thanks. Take it away, Roger.
Yeah.
And Roger, I'll do some of the intro slides in terms of who's Phase 2 as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We've got these couple of slides coming up.
And just real basic, and you probably already know this, I'll talk for probably 30 seconds. Phase 2 is a 70-person company. We used to be the largest Drupal company until there was a merger in Germany recently, which I think they have 140 people. And we specialize probably not just in Drupal, but we do quite a bit of mobile and other open source work. And in terms of our platform work, you see some of our clients, which include the Department of Energy, the White House, FEMA, Estee Lauder, Thomson Reuters, AP. So we do have quite a bit of experience in this space. Next slide. And just, again, a little bit of our background. In terms of our involvement in the Drupal community, we have over 55 Drupal professionals, 12 speakers at DrupalCon Denver, and just even after Denver, we had 4 speakers in DrupalCon Munich. We maintain 50-plus modules and maintain 4 distributions.
Thanks, Nicole. And can you hear me? This is Greg at Phase 2.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties on our end. Yeah, just as a follow-up to what Nicole said, there are a few what are called products or distributions that we maintain at Phase 2. So Open Public, Open Publish, Open Atrium. These are our Drupal-based that we use for various verticals that we serve. So the notion of a platform is important to us, especially when it comes to Open Public. So Open Public was used, for instance, for the recent DHS.gov launch, which was built on top of FEMA.gov and Ready.gov that had been deployed previously. Open Public was also used for Georgia.gov pretty recently. So that launched just over the last few weeks, and that involved the transition from Vignette to Drupal. So if you look at Georgia.gov, that's all based on public that distribution. So sorry for the technical difficulties, but I can pass it over to Roger now. And Roger, if you walk us through the energy.gov platform, that'd be great.
Thanks, Greg. Nicole. As Nicole mentioned, my name is Roger López, principal architect on energy.gov, and I've given this presentation in a number of different forms, and so this is fun.
Speak up, Roger.
Let me see. Is that any better?
No.
No.
I don't know if you can get your mic a little more.
That's right on my face. Is this better? No.
Because Greg was a lot louder.
Huh. Okay. Let me see if I can. If there's anything I do to switch this real quick.
And while Roger's doing that, Bruce, the format that we planned on was just to go through these slides, have Roger go through them for about 45 minutes, and then questions at the end, or any preference for that?
Fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. I'll just do my best to speak as loud as I can.
That's better.
Okay. Okay, so last year, around the beginning of 2011, we started meeting with the Department of Energy to discuss building their beautiful new state-of-the-art government site. So in meeting with them, some of the primary project goals, actually the one primary project goal that we came up with that everything else revolved around, was the consolidation of these hundreds of different office sites that they had. These office sites comprised separate physical websites for all of their program offices, for all of their divisions and sub-agencies, and the Department of Energy funds a lot of labs and different research projects, and all in all they had something like 2,000 domains, something really ridiculous. And each of these had its own budget, and really there was nothing in common from a technology standpoint between any of these. And so our primary goal on this project was the consolidation of all of these sites. So that meant, technology, hosting stack. They wanted to present a unified design and a unified voice, which meant bringing all of the design and a lot of the content and cross-pollinating that content across all of these different sites. And also they wanted to bring the maintenance into, consolidate the maintenance of all of these to have a huge cost savings. So in going through all of these different aspects of this one primary goal, we translated that into some technology goals. So to go along with the maintenance, we wanted to make sure that we were choosing the right technology for the future, so that we didn't put them on a platform that 6 months down the road they were needing major upgrades or re-architecting in order to put any additional features into it. Also, we wanted to transform a lot of the activities that used to be technology exercises that they used to have to find a sysadmin or an engineer or a developer to do. We wanted to take as many of those activities and turn them into content creation activities, especially the creation of all of these different office sites. And lastly, we wanted to do everything we could to empower the content creators. So the first thing we came across, one of the very first decisions that we had to make, was how are we going to future-proof this technology stack? This is a quote that I heard Tim O'Reilly first say at presenting a keynote at DrupalCon in San Francisco, I believe. And he made the point that an invention has to make sense in the world it finishes in, not in the world it started. And to apply this to our project, we had a long roadmap. It was going to be about a year out from the first time we first started talking to the Department of Energy. So the decisions that we were making had to really apply a year from now. They had to be good decisions a year from now, not good decisions in the time that we were making them. So just a little timeline. So it was right about the beginning of the year that we were starting to do our discovery. Drupal 7 released on January 5th of 2011. So it had just come out. The contributed modules have a historical or have a history of lagging behind the major Drupal core release. So a lot of the modules that we would typically rely on were not going to be available right at that same time. Also, we were getting ready to start development right away. We were wrapping up discovery. We were trying to put the final details on budget requirements and what the scope was going to be and how we were going to fit that all together. And I did some looking back. The first commit that we made to the energy.gov repository was April 8th of 2011. So this was almost immediately after DrupalCon, where the big rallying cry was to start building Drupal 7 sites. But at this time, really nobody was doing it. And we still had projects that we were starting on Drupal 6 for one reason or another. So energy.gov eventually launched on August 3rd. So you can see it's 8 full months after Drupal 7 was released. And even at that time, it was the first, I can't say definitively the first, but it was one of the first large enterprise scale sites to launch on Drupal 7. And then this last date is really the reason we made this decision, is that Drupal maintains security support and maintenance supports for its releases, for 2 releases at a time. So the plan right now is for Drupal 8 to be released around August 2013, which would mean that Drupal 6 would reach end of life in August 2013. And so we definitely want to give the Department of Energy more than 2 years runway with the platform that we're building. So Drupal 7 gave us a lot of new toys to play with that we didn't have in Drupal 6, and we really took the opportunity to kind of retool our stack in moving to Drupal 7. A lot of things that we relied on contributed modules for, we took this opportunity to see if they were still needed, or if Drupal 7 presented us the opportunity to kind of slim down all of the tools that we came to rely on. And we found that to a very large extent, things that we had always relied on were no longer needed. So that lag of contributed module support for Drupal 7 was not as intense as we thought it was going to be. In addition, things like the UX improvements for administrators and the enhancements to the scalability and performance, we realized there was just no comparison in Drupal 6. And to be able to make Drupal 6 do what we wanted, even with a very mature contributed module, was just not going to get us to the same place that Drupal 7 was. So ultimately, we made the choice to go with Drupal 7, and there was no looking back. So the contributed modules that we did use in this stack are, by and large, rewritten completely for Drupal 7. And most of these modules did a really good job of tracking Drupal 7 through the development cycles, so that they were available very early on. Organic groups, which I'll talk about, got a huge rewrite. Modules like context and media, well, not so much context, but media was targeted at Drupal 7. I don't think it even has a Drupal 6 release. And all of the field modules were once part of Drupal 6, or were once written for CCK in Drupal 6, but had to be rewritten completely for Drupal 7. So most of our stack was, pretty much written directly for the platform that we were going to be building on. In addition to that, we had some supporting technologies, Apache Solr to give us the best possible search solution that we could find, Memcached to help with our performance. I just realized I don't have it in this slide, but Varnish for reverse proxy caching, and then we use Jenkins to do all the automation and tie the platform together. So using this stack of technology, we felt we put the Department of Energy on a very successful path forward, without the need to constantly rethink all of their technology choices in the near future. So the next major hurdle that we had to figure out was what to do about all of these office sites. So like I said, there were 200 something of them that we were looking at, but in the discovery phase, we had nailed it down to 13 offices that were going to be part of the original rollout. So we had to make sure that we were designing a site that would allow for this gradual rollout. So in architecting a solution for the offices, we want to make sure that, like I said before, the maintenance and creation of these sites should not require any additional development or infrastructure. we didn't want to get anybody outside of the core kind of web maintenance team involved, other than maybe to like flip a DNS entry or something like that. We wanted to keep it as central to the platform as possible. We also knew that we were going to have separate teams that maintained each of these sites. The same teams that currently maintain the flat HTML or the Cold Fusion or whatever the other sites were, we wanted to involve those teams as much as possible, because ultimately they are the subject matter experts in their own content. And we wanted to take away any of the web stuff that was not in their expertise and let them really shine by providing the best content possible. And then we also wanted to take that content, which is ultimately what we're presenting here on the website, and we wanted to spread it across as many of the offices as possible. The labs have some really amazing content, and there are initiatives like Energy Savers and different offices that really have very, very good content that the public could make great use of. But that wasn't being shared very well, and the reason is there was just no mechanism to do that. So that became one of the core requirements. So with these requirements in mind, this is where we turn to the Organic Groups module. Organic Groups is a module that's been around Drupal for quite a while. There's a Drupal site called groups.drupal.org, which is kind of a collaboration site for Drupal. There are groups there for locales, so like there's a New York City group, and there are groups around certain activities, but it's all about collaboration. And so the Organic Groups powers that site, and this is the first use case for Organic Groups. But it's since become a more useful and more kind of generic module that does just a few things, but it empowers you to do even more. So with Organic Groups, you can, number one, you can create groups. Each of these groups has the ability to have content that belongs to that group and users that are members of that group. Once you have this structure set up, this allows you to do things like make a group be private to only its memberships, or allow the content to be visible to the public, but only created by its members. And it also lets you kind of segment your site. So you have one Drupal installation, but it can be shown as if it was different portions of one big site or different topic sections. Or I've seen it used where it looks completely different, and it looks like it's many different sites. So that's kind of what we were going for here. Yet we wanted to, maintain the same design. So it looked like Organic Groups was going to satisfy all of our requirements, or allow us to satisfy all of our requirements. So we made the decision very early on that we're going to use Organic Groups. Just a note about the way that Organic Groups works is any fieldable entity in Drupal. So a fieldable entity is any type of object that can have fields added to it. So nodes, taxonomy terms, even users. So any fieldable entity can now be a group or a member of a group. So this gives us pretty wide-ranging functionality in how we want to architect our solution, how we want it to put it together. So when I go in and I create a node, I have this option now. Do I want to make this a group or not a group? Also, if we go the other way and I'm creating a node and I want to select which group it belongs to, I have all of these options to me. And so as you can see, we've set up all the offices as groups. So now if I'm creating an article or a news story or something, I can very easily cross-pollinate it across whatever groups I have access to. So, and actually, getting to actually going out and setting this up and implementing it, we decided that what we were really doing with offices was categorizing our content into offices. There wasn't really any one entity that was an office. It was more along the lines that everything, that all of the content and all the users that we were creating kind of were just being categorized by this. So we made the decision to that a taxonomy term was the closest natural fit for what an office really was. So we used a taxonomy term, and that taxonomy term can then be either enabled or not as a group using that little radio button that I showed you before. Group-enabled offices are the offices that are fully managed on the platform. So those are the ones that were in that original group of 13 offices and any of them that have come over since. But we also maintain a term for the non-group offices. So these are the offices that still maintain their own site. There's an external site somewhere. A lot of the labs right now are still external sites. But we want to know about them on energy.gov. We want to be able to link to those and have a description. So we still maintain that information so that we can build the directory. So this screenshot that I showed you before, these are all taxonomy terms on the site. Some of them are groups, some of them are not, but we're able to build these lists and categorize them in all the same way, regardless of if we're managing them on the site or not. And then when it comes time to actually migrate one of these sites that's not part of the platform onto the platform, it's as simple as going in and switching that radio button to turning it on to enable it as a group, and then adding the content. So you know, everything we did here was really intended to make migration of sites onto the platform as simple as possible. So just a little bit about office creation. Again, this is one of the things that we really wanted to focus on to make this as simple as possible. So the steps for office creation are now you go in, you create a new office taxonomy term, you enable the group, you enable it to be a group, and then you go off and do all these tasks. You create a homepage node for it, you create a news page, you create a contact us page. We realized that so much of this was repetitive that we went out and we created a module to help us out with some of this. So now the next step you get when you create one of these office nodes is you get this task list. Some of these tasks run automatically as soon as you create the taxonomy term for the office. Some of them are optional. So here we can see one where the contact us page and office-specific vocabulary, about us, the navigation, et cetera, have already been created, but we have a news page that is optional because not every office will actually have a news page. So this was a way for us to, again, speed up the creation of these one-off sites while at the same time managing the complexity and managing to keep it as uniform as possible. This module that we built to do this, OG Tasks, was contributed back to the Drupal community by us, and it's on Drupal.org, and I have a URL to that at the end of the slideshow. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is empowering the content editors. This is really kind of where we got to have the most fun, and there were really some challenges here that were just kind of ingrained into the way that Drupal does things. So the major hurdles we had to get over were really just some assumptions that Drupal makes about how your site's going to function. So pages versus nodes and block creation versus block placement and revisions versus drafts are all about the way that we imagine somebody who's new to Drupal thinking about something versus the way that Drupal wants to train you to think about things. And there's power on both sides of this equation. And we found ourselves kind of in a constant struggle of trying to figure out how far do we want to go to meet our user base's current expectations versus how much do we, want to rely on what Drupal does naturally and provide training and documentation. And so I feel that we did a pretty good job of meeting in the middle on most of these places. So just take you through a couple of these. So this first one is one of the most core things that we did on the platform. It's the concept of pages versus nodes. So in Drupal, a node is the kind of most abstract form of content. A blog article can be a node. Pretty much anything that the user is entering into the system to create content is a node. The other thing about a node is it inherently has a URL that you can go to. So most of these end up as something like /node/123, but then they get nice URLs so that they don't look like that. But essentially every node that you create gets a URL. So there's this confusion of, am I creating a node? Am I creating a page? And the thing about Drupal is it lets you decorate the page with whatever else you want. So you end up with a lot of pages where the node that you're creating controls the URL and it controls a block of text in the middle of the page, but it really controls nothing else. And this is something that we found over and over again to be very, very confusing for a lot of users and a major block into managing a Drupal installation efficiently. So there are other things that Drupal does that are very node-centric that exclude portions of the page that a user would think belongs to it. So those same blocks that you can decorate the page with don't normally get indexed for search because they're outside of the node. Also, things like workflow. If you have a workflow system set up where you're checking everything along the way, that only applies to the node itself, not anything else that's on the page. So again, just more confusion along the way, and it's not something that's impossible to get past. We just wanted to find a way to smooth the transition into learning how to do this effectively. So the way we wanted to really approach this was we figured this is mostly a kind of a page layout and a kind of block placement issue. So Drupal has a way to place content blocks all along the page, and so it's got this idea of a block. A block is similar to a node, except it doesn't have a URL, and it's not nearly as complicated, and it can't do as much. But you can put content in it, and you can put it on the page. So imagine like an ad or a promotion block, or a block listing like the latest 10 comments or something like that. So what we wanted to do is to be able to get those blocks and have them be managed as part of the node so that it just kind of fits in with the mental model that most of our users have. So to do this, we used a module called block references. This allowed us to add fields to our nodes, to our content types, that would allow us to specifically say exactly which blocks we wanted on the page. And so this brings our node and our page concept much closer together. We built different landing page types of nodes, and each one has its own layout and its own regions where these blocks can be placed. And by doing this, we were able to kind of emulate what Drupal does naturally with regions, but at a level much closer to what the user's mental model is. So here we see, I believe this is the home page. So we built a content type that would have this layout and this template. And so each of these things that we see on the page are blocks. This is the home page. So the home page typically doesn't have any content that belongs to that home page. Usually it's just an aggregation of other content that's on the page. So if I'm going to go create a home page, what I'm really saying is I want to put together a page that has this block here and this block here and this block here and this block here. So that's what we did. Likewise, on this